going to
It's
go.
all-
So, welcome, and board, it seems like they're so far away. But I really like it. So, welcome. We have a full board. Dino's just down with us, and we're glad to have them as well as our reps from WEA, OW.
W, you have it, yeah. I'm in Ogden too, but we're in Weaver's back.
There we go.
We like to be inclusive, Art.
Exactly.
Ogden appreciates that.
Exactly.
They're in Weaver County.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
WEA. So we're going to get started.
Oh.
The first item on our agenda for Super Salad will be the SIS, or Student Information Systems, and the adoption of the update. Superintendent Butters, please.
Absolutely, thank you, President Ritchie. I just want to really quickly reintroduce two wonderful director and supervisor who are going to update the board on where we are in the Student Information System update process. We are getting really close. We're super excited about the two products that we want to share with you tonight, share some of the details with. And then Robert, right at the end of their presentation, I'll have you jump in and update the board on kind of our funding plan for this upcoming purchase that the board is looking at. Thank you.
Hey, all right. We are excited to update you about our student information system. We gave you quite a lengthy presentation at the last Secret Salad. We have a pretty detailed little presentation ready for you. Want me to do my? We've got a detailed presentation for you. We debated, how much detail to go into on this, but we wanted you to know how thorough this process has been and all of the components that it has, that we've undertaken in the last month. So bear with us on the numbers. We'll try to make it as fun as possible to look at all of these spreadsheets. Sherry and I both think they're great fun. So here we go. If you remember, we gave you this handout during the last Soup and Salad. Maybe.
Might have to drive from there, Jen.
Yeah, I could just walk over here. Okay. It just had our timeline for the things that were going to take place during this next little while of time. Good. Thanks. The first thing that happened after we met with you last was the proposal review. Well, we had sat and narrowed down to our 4 products, which we shared with you at our last Soup and Salad. We had 6 bids come in. We narrowed down to 4 that we wanted to take further in the process. So currently, I get to work in technical services, and that group was given those 4 products. They created a rubric from everything outlined in the RFP to make sure that we were totally in alignment with what was being asked there. That group felt like they wanted to sit together as a team and go through each product. So they spent several hours together looking at each product. So you can see the top graphic there has product A, B, C, and D across the top, representing the 4 that continued on in the process. As we went through the RFP technical requirements, you can see down there in the pink line that says evaluation total, that there is not a lot of difference between the products. That is actually a great thing at this stage, meaning that we have 4 solid products that met the minimum technical requirements to move on in the process. So 4 great options that are technically viable for what we need at a minimum in our district. Beyond that, we had 5 of the Tech Services Department members go ahead and give us their rankings for their choices on product. So not only looking at the minimum requirements represented above, but also some of the other unique features within the products and how those would help on the technical side of things and be received on the technical side. For each member, they got to choose a number 1 ranking and a number 2 ranking. So you can see that product A was ranked number 1 by all except for one of the technical services members who was involved in the review. It was ranked 2nd by that 4th member. Down at the bottom, you can see the points that this piece of the review that each product received. So overwhelmingly at this stage, at least, product A was the favorite among the technical services department.
So then we moved into the stakeholder review. which actually lasted for quite a long time. November 3rd, we began through the 22nd. The biggest day that you guys might have been aware of was the 18th. It was a Friday. We had about 50 folks from the district come and go through at each vendor's presentation with us. Starting around the 3rd, people were given sandbox accounts, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. They were preview accounts, so they could go in and take a look at the different products that were there. On the 18th, we broke into 4 separate groups. So we had teachers, admins, counselors, and parents, and then our district staff, so directors and supervisors, and some of our technical services folks, split up among each of those groups, and each went around and listened to the various presentations. Now, after each presentation, everybody was asked to vote and give each product a ranking. There were about 10 questions that were each given a point value. They ranked them from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we'd love to give you a math lesson, but people might fall asleep at this time of night. But that would make us super happy to do that. So everything was kind of ranked, and then this portion was given 25 points based upon our RFP. So we just converted everything to 25 points so that it could go in the final rankings. One question that you might have is, why were the points possible slightly different? So that second line down. Not everyone voted. It was not a requirement of the day. It was simply a request. And then not everyone voted on each product. So, there were people who had to step out for various reasons throughout the day. So that's why there were some slightly different points. Interestingly enough, you will notice that there was not really a statistical difference between any of the products. The reason for that is they knew from our RFP what things we were looking for in their presentations. And so they geared those presentations to those items. So when people answered, it was, they mostly strongly agreed or agreed simply because those were the items that were addressed. So we didn't find anything that was, extremely exciting here, other than, again, it was confirmation that the products met our minimum requirements. When the vendors did their presentations, so just a reminder, these were the 4 that we got down to: EduPoint or Synergy, Focus, and Infinite Campus, and Power School. Each of the vendors took about an hour and a half and walked the user group through the specific features of their product. So each of the presentations was specifically tailored toward those groups, whether they were admins, teachers, parents, or counselors. And then, like I said, the district office staff was just in there as well. After that, the stakeholders ranked their products. This was done at the very end of the day. We asked them, it was a very long day. We started at 7:30-ish and ended up about 5 o'clock coming back into this room and talking about the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of each product as we had seen it throughout the day, just as a debrief in case somebody saw something that someone else didn't. These were the rankings as far as who ranked them 1, 2, 3, or 4. You'll notice that product A, again, matching up with the technical services review, was ranked number 1 by 61%. It is of note the end size, how many people actually participated in this ranking. By this time of the evening, it was about 5 o'clock. And so a few folks did have to leave. So we didn't want to make any big decisions when, there was an end size of 2. But it looks like product A, 61% with 22 people. Product D had 36%, 13 people ranked it number 1. You will notice, though, that if you add the rankings 1 and 2, so just those first 2 columns, you can see that we are about 86% ranked product A as either first or second, right? And not too far behind with product B, or product D, excuse me. It's becoming very clear, I'm sure you're seeing after just these few data points, that products B and C were not favored by either technical services or by the results from our product reviews. Now, when we added, like we were talking about, the first two columns together, product A, again, 86.1% of all folks who ranked them ranked product A as either number 1 or number 2. Product B was only 13, almost 14%. Product C, a little over 22%. And then product D was 77.8, pretty close. So based on those rankings, again, we had 2 that emerged as our top contenders. I'm still right? Okay. So on the 18th, that evening, a Friday night, what could be better than to have date night at the district office to run through an open house? We did surprisingly have about 45 people who came through that evening. This was for our educators in the district. We ran that from 5:30 to 7:30, and not all of the 45 voted, of course. Remember that what we had here, it was a fascinating dynamic. The vendors did not want to be in the same room. We had actually planned for them all to be in here so that folks would just simply have to go around, you know, like a symposium or conference you might go to, that you just wander around. They didn't want that. So we split them all into separate rooms. You know, there were trade secrets and things like that they were afraid might be revealed. And so people did have to do a little bit more work, had to walk around the top level of the district office. All they got during that piece was a very simple, quick presentation, just maybe even 5 minutes. A couple of the vendors kept folks a little longer than that. A lot of this was based on questions that people came in with, and the vendors responded to those specifically. So this was not actually used in our final point rankings. This was just a guide to us, and it especially will help us out as we now begin the process of narrowing it down from the 2 vendors that we have left. You will notice that 55% of our participants, 11 people, ranked product A again as their number 1. 25%, but only 5 people, ranked product D as number 1. So it's falling out just like it had in all of our other metrics that we had going along through this presentation. So 75% basically ranked product A as either 1 or 2, and 45% ranked product D as either 1 or 2. You will notice kind of a bit of an anomaly here. Product B also had 45% of the vote. But again, it was based on a very quick presentation, maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
All right, all users who attended the stakeholder review were given a sandbox, basically a trial account that matched their user group. So teachers were given a teacher account, admins were given an admin account, and they could go into those 4 different accounts and take a look at how the software actually operated from that point of view as a user. This group then received a survey a few days later asking about that sandbox experience. So as we take a look, we've got, again, products A, B, C, and D. We've got a weighted score there that, again, accounts for the number of respondents. And we can see over on the right-hand side how many points out of 25 the product received on this survey. Now, this survey only had 2 specific questions on it. But you can see not as wide of a difference here, but products A and D with that experience came out on top. After all of this, and after the amazing Sherry put all of this data together for the group, the district review committee met again. This review committee is comprised of all of the directors, the superintendency, and several supervisors here at the district office to go through the data. Our job was to narrow down based on that data to our top 2 contenders. which from the data we felt like was a pretty clear decision. We then took a vote on our top 1 and 2, and those same 2 products emerged as our top 2. At that point, the bids were opened. Now, the bids have been kept in a safe here at the district office. They were submitted separately from the actual technical parts of the products, just so that did not influence our decision until this point. We didn't want the cost to outweigh anything that we could possibly learn and about these products and the solutions that were out there. So Dax helped us with that. It was a little bit like Christmas as we slid the envelope openers through those and we pulled those out to look at them. It was our first look at those, and so we ended up having some points of clarification that we needed on the bids. Just because the products did not bid in comparison to each other. Some of the products have a small base product and then use kind of an add-on approach to have you customize what you'd like, and others kind of give you a larger base price. So to be able to compare apples to apples, we needed to figure out exactly what was in those bids, what add-ons we would need with each different product, so that we were making sure we were comparing what Weber needed in both products. Yeah. So Sherry and I and Nick Harris spent the balance of that day, 5 or 6 more hours, right, meeting together and meeting again with our top 2 vendors virtually to get clarification on those different points. So we had questions about the bid and then also questions about the product that we wanted clarification on after that stakeholder review. So it was a great and very thorough process.
So this was our final, in the RFP, there were 4 different categories that were part of the overall rankings. And so we put this together just to kind of put all of the data in one place. This was brought to the table last Friday. The technical services review, you can see, was worth 25 points. The product demonstrations, 25. The hands-on or sandbox experiences were 25. And then the cost proposals, there were 50. And you can see the breakdown. When we met, though, we didn't feel like we had enough information to fill in those cost proposals appropriately. And so that's why we went back and had those virtual meetings with the vendors. The plan is now to meet tomorrow, now that we have all of this information, and we'll kind of go over that in the next slide with you. But now that we have this information, our committee will meet again tomorrow and be able to fill in the rest of this chart. But you can kind of see now how things are emerging anyway. Product A is still, the leading contender at this point. Without the price proposals being added in, and product D. So everything is lining up very, very nicely.
Here's probably what you've been waiting for. Here are the dollar amounts that go with those different products. Now, if we look through year 1 at the top is what it would basically be for our first year. There are different marketing strategies employed by different companies. So you can see the strategy between A and D is different, right? It would make sense to me, at least, that year 1 would be more expensive with all of the implementation costs and things like that, right? The training, things like that. So you can see that the ongoing cost, which is probably the best thing to look at this point, was bid out. Now the top box is what was in the actual bid, so you can see the numbers that we were looking at. Was the $352,000 compared to product D with the $224,000. We thought it was interesting that product C we had eliminated was actually by far the most expensive product. So it was an interesting thing to us as we opened up those bids. The work down below is the work that we did during our virtual meetings with vendor A and, between the 2 finalists, looking at those, there are some details there about what different add-ons we would need. A big part of this for our district, and I know for Gina's vision, is making sure that we can visualize the data that we're looking at in a very easy to access way for teachers so that they can make instructional decisions quickly. So to make sure we had that piece, we went through with finalist number 1 and made sure we had their analytics package and also their MTSS package included. You can see the total for the add-ons there was $187,000. Which jumped their costs up just a little bit. Those are not things that we have to have, but those amongst the district committee were things that we really wanted to have within this product. They were not a part of the RFP ask. They were not a part of our minimum requirements. Finalist number 2, there's a home communication package that could replace a product Remind that we're currently paying for. So that would be a cost savings there if we brought that on. And then in addition, we wanted that visualization piece, which brought their price up by about $199,000. So if you go all the way to the right, actually one column left of the right, to get everything we could possibly want from those 2 products, those would be the prices. Again, not significantly different, and significantly less than we had actually projected. We were projecting this would be about $1 million a year purchase for us, and we're way in under that. So that was an exciting thing as well. Yeah. To the right, there's an adjusted cost. All that is different there is the analytics package for finalist 1 is taken off. That's one that we thought we could live without if we had to. So those are the financials as we're seeing that at this point. These have actually not been discussed yet with the district review committee. As Sherry mentioned, these will be discussed tomorrow during our meeting. So we're hoping that tomorrow we will have a recommendation, our final product, and prepare a recommendation for the board to approve on January 4th. Is there any questions that we can answer for you? Jen?
I have a question about.
Jan, yes, speak into
There
that
you go.
microphone.
You just turned it on for me. The analytics. Talk to me just very briefly about what that piece is.
So this is the piece that takes and makes not the reporting happen, because that's in the base package, but gives us some early warnings, lets us set up custom reports. So an administrator would open the product, and sitting on their dashboard would be the students who were failing 2 or more classes, the students who had been absent for more than 4 or 5 days, whatever that
So maybe
administrator.
critical in a PLC meeting.
Absolutely. Do you have something to add?
It's all of the data visualization tools.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Jennifer, I just have one question. Have we looked at, now that we know these products, have we looked at any other districts that are using these products? Have we talked to them?
Yes, we've done a thorough analysis of that as well. One of the finalists, we've been actually out to 2 different districts who are using it. We've talked with their technical services department here in Utah, sat with them to see what their experience was. We've taken the whole tech team out to do that. So that's been very informative. Both of these submitted references for reference districts around the country, both inside of Utah and outside. I've called all of those references. I've talked with all of the technical directors within those districts who all have talked to the ease of use, the ease of implementation, and are also ready to be partners if we need more help.
Do the demographics of their districts look somewhat similar to ours?
They do.
Okay.
That was part of what we had asked for, was to give us the districts that were like us. So similar in size. And
Thank you.
Any other questions, board? I wanted to follow up just with a couple salient points, unless you have additional questions for our 2 on this.
I'll just follow up after yours.
That's
Go ahead.
great. Yeah, I just wanted to recognize that Jan Burrell was the board representative on our committee, and we want to thank Jan for her hard work. And I want to give a shout out to Sherry, Jennifer, and Nick. You can see the hard work that's gone into this. I heard from multiple vendors and patrons through the process. They appreciated how robust the process was and how transparent it was, and that we included representation from all of the stakeholders across the district. So I feel very confident in saying, great board, that we've gone through a very, very detailed process to get to this point. And any other questions that you might have?
Just one comment. Having seen the process, having gone through this before in the years that I've sat on board, as we've gone through this with the board, the suggestion the cost would be made, make sure you get what you want, and not necessarily on the dollar figures or what's there, what works for us. We can justify why we went the way we went because of what you did on your homework, but get what will work best for us so we move forward for years to come. You know what I mean? I mean, they're fairly close, and we've done this before, Robert, so just 2 cents. Thanks, job well done. I'm glad I wasn't here till 5:30 listening to numbers. I'd have maybe 2 Diet Cokes.
you late nights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, you 2. Well done. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the next one, the audit
Yeah.
discussion. We're short on time, so Robert, please.
Let's see, I got a handout here.
The audit committee met yesterday, or Monday rather, and reviewed our annual independent audit that was completed a while ago. And Pilkington's here, our assistant business administrator, and he has put together the financials. And do you have the bound copy for him?
I can hand out.
I know for many of you, you share my vision that this is probably the most exciting thing you're going to see today is this financials.
Maybe not.
Well, Doug told me it was too exciting. But that's what I'm but I passed out a sheet because a lot of people that want to know how did we end up and were there any findings on the audit. First off, there were no material findings on the audit. The audit went very smooth, and that was great. It's been a while since we've had an audit with 0 findings, and so no material findings. We do have a couple of compliance issues though that they are not material, but they're things that we need to kind of fix. One of the compliance issues just was that we advertised the budget hearing 7 days, this is clear back for our June budget hearing, 7 days in advance of the newspaper instead of the required 10. The state requires it. So we're going to correct that for sure. That's an easy fix. Then another compliance issue is we've not developed a way and many districts are in the same boat. There the fee waivers that are now that the fees committee with the state legislatures met, and a lot of the fees are getting waived for what we charge for participation in school activities and other things. We need to have a more robust, more accurate way to distribute the fee waiver money to our 40 schools. And they want us to work on that. Did I say that right, Seth, or is that anything?
Yeah, it's essentially if you waive a fee at a school, that school shouldn't be punished or unable to run a program as effective. So there needs to be a way to make that more equitable.
Mm-hmm. And so that's something we're working on, and we already are well on our way. Those are the 2 compliance issues. Now, if you look here on the sheet of paper that I passed out, we have the fund balances from 2021, and we have the fund balances from 2022. These balances, like look at where it says 22 fund balances, they go from non-spendable, the most restricted, to unassigned. And so as you move down, the restrictions become less. The big fund that we have is the general fund. That is our, $200+ million fund. You can see we have inventories of prepaid items, 3.1 million. Economic stabilization, a lot of you know that as the rainy day fund, 6 million. Employee vacation benefits, this is if every employee who gets vacation left at the same time, which is not going to happen, but we have to account for it. That's 3,053,000. Contractual obligations are things like encumbrances that we've already earmarked. The early retirement benefit, this is a benefit that's enjoyed by all of our employee groups. This includes early retirement, health insurance and stipends to bridge the gap for our employee groups, and these are negotiated items. That's a 10 million. Other programs are 3,015,000. If you look down, you can see the change by category. We have the inventories went up by 1.7 million, employee vacation benefit by 105,000, other programs by 807,000, unassigned by 138,000. Another thing to note is that employee vacation benefit really jumped during COVID because we took the cap off of leave. That cap was put back on in September, so we suspect that's going to drop by quite a bit next year. Another thing to note, if you go to the other programs, there's 3,015,000. I don't know if you can see that. That is there's money that we could spend on the student information system for 2 or 3 years out of that. We also have another money that is ESSER related in the capital fund because we pre-bought Chromebooks, and so we freed up some money that we could also spend on the SIS fund. So we have a couple options on how we can do this SIS. And the challenging thing will be after year 3, carving out a permanent spot in the budget for the continuous fund. And we had 3 years to do that, and we can do it. Okay, capital breakdown, you can see, first off, the debt service fund, and I'll be 2 more minutes. It grew by 970,000. You can see that at the bottom of that column, it says debt services. That's money that we have to pay for our bonds. Capital projects grew by quite a bit. It grew by 86 million. And the reason being is because we're building buildings. And at the snapshot in time on June 30th, there was 86 million there. That has dropped significantly as we've been paying for these buildings. And you'll see that go up and down over the next 3 years as we go through this building project. I like the capital breakdown because you can see how it breaks down. We have 63 million in a balance for bond projects, a little over $1 million for textbooks. The Johnson Control project that we've started, which will take 2 to 3 years, is 17 million left there. Maintenance projects, this is Cody's balance, 2.1 million, and unassigned is 5 million. For district our size, the unassigned that's very modest. And you can see school lunch as a healthy increase in their balance, and because of ESSER monies that came through. Student activities, they are down a little, and the foundation is down a little, 277,000. That is primarily because their investment portfolio with the economic times the stock market and investments has gone down. All in all, a very healthy year for Weber School District. And our auditor will be here later on, and he will present the audit, and it will be brief. Matt Geddes, we work with Squire & Company, and we really enjoy our association with them, and it'll be a good thing. In years past, we voted to approve the audit, and Matt Geddes said, you really don't need to do that, because if you disapprove the audit, it's still going to be, it's going to stand. And so he's going to get on the agenda. It says audit presentation, so discussion.
That's perfect.
So that's all I have, President.
When's the next bond release?
That's a good question. We're going to sell. We've done 90 million of our 279 authorization. It'll be in January, first part of February. We're going to do 100. Yeah.
Thanks, Robert and Seth.
Okay.
Appreciate it, and we look forward to the report. And again, there's no action needed. Just FYI.
I'll just say
we're
one-
required to have audits.
I'll just say one more phrase. Seth is the man.
Who's Seth?
The man. That's who it is.
Oh, I thought that was a comedian on the. Anyway.
Anyways,
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And our item number 3, update from the department heads. We don't have anything
Nope,
there, so
not tonight.
if we have nothing else, board, we will we'll close our soup and salad, and you'll have 11 minutes before we start board meeting at 6. So you're free to roll about the building.